Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. The time is now 1:31. The regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation, doing business as the El Paso Transportation Authority, is now in open session. Commissioner Jackie Butler is presiding as the chair of the board, and the next agenda item will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Butler, the next agenda item is public comment. There is, no one signed up for public comments. So if it's okay, we can go ahead and move on to agenda item 4.
Yes, but before we start, I'd like to take a moment to make
Yes,
some
ma'am.
comments myself, if that's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the board. Before we begin today's meeting, I want to take a moment to officially and warmly welcome Mr. John Ando to his first meeting as the director of the El Paso Transportation Authority. As you all know, because you were part of this process, when we set out to hire our first ever director, we were looking for a visionary, someone who could bring structure to this young organization and who had the drive and expertise to build something transformative. We weren't just looking for a manager or somebody who would keep the status quo. We were looking for somebody who was a change maker, and I think that we found that in Mr. Ando. In just a few weeks, 5 weeks, that he's been in El Paso, he has hit the ground running. Today's agenda is the most extensive we have ever seen, with nearly 300 pages of thoughtful backup materials that he has crafted almost entirely himself, and more consequential items to this organization than we've seen in a single meeting. That's not by accident, that's intentional, and it's a reflection of this new chapter for ETA. So thank you all for being part of this, and thank you for being here today. Together with Mr. Ando's leadership, I know that this board remains committed to building a reliable, accessible, and efficient transit system for the people of El Paso County. That means improving service quality, expanding weekend and rural routes, forming stronger partnerships with our communities, and ensuring we're reaching residents who need transit the most. There's a lot of hard work ahead, and today's agenda is going to help us build that infrastructure organizationally that we need to move forward. Mr. Ando, thank you for all of your work in putting today's agenda together. Thank you also to the Rio Grande Council of Governments for your support. Thank you to all of our staff. Thank you to this board for coming on this journey with us. We have a reception after today's board meeting that we're looking forward to welcoming other members of the community to as well. So we'll go ahead and kick it off, and I'm sure it's going to be a very productive meeting. Thank you.
All right, so this will take us to our next agenda item, number 4, the consent agenda. The consent agenda is comprised of items 4A through 4H. Are there any items from any items the board would like to pull at this time?
I would like to pull item 4A on the minutes, Annette. We did have some corrections to make to the minutes that are in the backup, and we've handed out a copy with the track changes to all of the board members, and I would like to propose that we approve these instead of what's in the backup.
So we do have agenda item 4A. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented by Commissioner Butler?
So moved.
That's a motion from Art Rubio.
I second.
Second, Mr. Condi, Eddie Condi. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion will carry. And so then we do have the consent agenda item, so that would be 4B through 4H for your consideration.
Unless there are any comments or questions from the board, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion from Commissioner Butler and a second from Andrea Carrillo to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This will now take us to agenda item 5, which is the regular agenda. 5A is to approve and authorize the proposed amendments to the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Governments Corporation bylaws based on previous board action, as well as consider new amendments to the EPATS LGC bylaws, subject to legal review and approval. And our presenter is our Transit Director, Mr. John Ando.
Go ahead, Mr. Ando. I just wanted to make some comments that this is something you inherited as you walked in. We were in the middle of amending these, if the board remembers, and so I know that there were just a couple of additions in the last, since the last time we spoke about the bylaws, so I'll let you review those now, please. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the Board of Directors, John Ando, Transit Director. Today, I present to you some revisions to the bylaws. As this board has been aware, the board has considered bylaw changes at least a few times over the last few years. However, the last official bylaws that have been adopted by the Commissioners Court was December 7 of 2020. So I'd like to get direction from the board in regards to these proposed changes, and upon board's consensus and approval, we would forward these to Commissioners Court to approve these proposed changes. And I'll highlight the changes in detail so the board is aware of what we're proposing. First and foremost, we did a lot of technical cleanup just to make sure that we use the right case lettering for terms that are meaningful in the bylaws, eliminated duplicative sentences or duplicative statements, and added more clarity into these bylaws. So you'll see that in section 1.1, for instance. Article 2, we've added some clarity on the function of and authority of the board. Article 3, we added clarity on membership. We did add the language about a mass transit department governed by Texas Transportation Code Section 453 within El Paso. That could be a potential member of the corporation. We added some language in relation to defining local government unit as the principal term throughout the document, or members, which could be used either or. Section 4, Article 4, we added some clarity about adding an alternate director should a primary director not be present, and that alternate director would need to be appointed by the governing body's policy board. Added some section terminology for paragraphs where they were lacking, as you'll see in red. Section 4.6 has been recommended to be striked by ETA attorney because it's already covered in section 4.1. So I would ask that this board consider striking section 4.6. Additional technical changes in section 4. Section 4.13 is added just to add a training for new board members, and that's Ethics, Public Information, and Open Meetings Act. I envision that we'll work with ETA's attorney on doing these presentations. They did one recently with me, took about 30 minutes, so I envision we can do the same with new board members that come on board. Section 414 is about non-attendance of board meetings. That's been added. Further technical changes in Article 5. Better definition of corporation staff, which may either be employed directly by EPAT or be El Paso County staff, as defined by a master agreement, which I envision bringing before this board and Commissioners Court at a future date. Added executive director to the staff members that would be proposed by this or hired by this corporation. Article 6, just a few technical changes. Article 7, a few technical changes and clarity. Deleted section 703 since that's already duplicative in section 701. deleted redundant language in Section 8 of Article 8. Added section information on Article 11. And then attach the ethics policy. I've also been advised by General Counsel, not General Counsel, ETA's attorney, that we need to also include dissolving language of the corporation, should the corporation be voted to be dissolved. So they are drafting some suggested language that we would also include into these bylaws. Those are the changes that we're proposing, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any from members of the board.
This is a living document, so I know that we're already talking about bringing additional proposed changes to the bylaws in the next meeting. So I don't have any questions for what's proposed now. Do any other board members? Mr. Ramkis?
Just to call attention, your new title based on the consent agenda is now Executive Director, and that syncs with what you have in the bylaws, so.
Yes, foresight and planning. I'll make a motion to approve. Oh, go ahead,
Sorry,
Mr.
I had a question on Article 4. So we're adding one more county board member to the,
Oh, yes, thank you for bringing that up. I apologize. With the addition, should this board agree to add the City of El Paso Mass Transit Department and any future members, potentially Socorro, because of the county's investment in the transit system, we're recommending an additional seat for the county.
And that's only if additional board members,
That's
additional
only if
entities join the
additional board
board.
members are added.
okay, only if that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So, and as you know, there's 2 items on this agenda that we'll be discussing, authorizing discussions with City of Socorro as well as with City of El Paso Mass Transit Department.
Thank you for the clarification.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
not a question, but the only thing that I'll point out is in Article 2 about the membership to the Transportation Policy Board of the MPO. It's specifying that it be one of the county's appointments to the Board of Directors. We are preparing our amendments to our bylaws to go forward in August. And included in that is a added stipulation about avoiding the creation of quorum for other government bodies at the policy board meetings. So this language, with the composition of the LGC right now, is pretty limiting in terms of who that appointed person can be. If that changes, in the future, there's another county member, then it becomes a bit more flexible. And we don't know whether those are going to be approved by the policy board, but it's just something to be aware of.
Thank you for the heads up. I think if and when the MPO passes their bylaws, we could revisit this and come up with alternative strategies for our representation. That's okay?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. A motion from Commissioner Butler and a second from Andrea Carrillo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to Agenda Item 5B. This is to approve and authorize the chair or the director to negotiate and execute an interlocal agreement with El Paso County for fiscal year 2025 contributions, subject to legal review and approval. Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the Board of Directors. This item is basically authorizing staff to negotiate and execute an interlocal agreement with the county. The county is the last entity that has yet to sign an interlocal agreement for fiscal year 25. And attached to the staff report is a copy of the proposed interlocal agreement with the county. Our attorney, ETA's attorney, has proposed just minor changes to that would be incorporated into the negotiations with the county. In the current county's budget, there is $752,600. We're requesting that full amount, which would then become part of the fund balance of the corporation. It is the intent, which you'll hear a presentation from TTI later on, that starting next fiscal year, we would start incorporating the fund balance of the LGC into the local matches of the county, which means that in the upcoming fiscal year, the county's contribution to the LGC is going to significantly drop as a result of the fund balance that exists today. This way, all of the members' contributions are now being applied towards the county's transit grants until we're able to transfer or assume grant responsibilities from the county and within the LGC. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any on the staff report.
Questions, board members? No? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Butler,
Second?
second for Mr. Rubio. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We now move to 5C. This is a resolution to authorize the director to apply for direct recipient status with the Federal Transit Administration following Sun Metro's service expansion policy, and to execute any necessary grant applications, agreements, and certifications and assurances necessary to obtain direct recipient status, subject to legal review and approval. Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. This staff report is basically authorizing the director to start pursuing direct recipient status with the Federal Transit Administration following the City of El Paso Mass Transit Department's service expansion policy. As you'll see in the staff report, historically, the transit system was receiving TxDOT funding through Section 5311 because the majority of our services was operating in the rural area. Since the 2020 census, that has changed, and close to 96% of ETA service is now in the El Paso urbanized area. And while we're going to continue to receive some rural funding through TxDOT for federal fiscal year 26, it's going to significantly decline in fiscal year 27. So it's imperative that we start pursuing and obtaining FTA Section 5307 and FTA Section 5339 funds from the El Paso urbanized area. And in order for us to achieve that, there are multiple ways in Sun Metro service expansion policy that we could pursue to obtain those funds. I'm recommending that we pursue the direct recipient status and demonstrate to the Federal Transit Administration our legal, financial, and technical capacity to be able to manage those funds. You'll see in a future staff item later on today, authorization for us to add additional staff so that we can ensure we have the appropriate staffing support to be able to manage those FTA grants. It is anticipated that those 5307 and 5339 grants that we would receive in future fiscal years are going to become the lion's share of the corporation's budget, in addition to the local contributions to match those grants that the member participants are presently providing. Happy to answer any questions about the staff report if there are any.
Any comments from Sun Metro?
We've had some initial discussions with Mr. Ando about this, and I think even going back before that when Commissioner Leon was chairing the board. So certainly Sun Metro's prepared to work with ETA and with Mr. Ando to get to figure out what that, actually to walk through the process to which will be memorialized in a service expansion agreement. Once that service expansion agreement is executed, then we'll be authorized to issue what's called a split letter to FTA, and that would, the FTA allocates a certain portion of funds to the entire urbanized area. So the portion that ETA would get would be indicated in that split letter. And we have to agree on how that portion is going to be split up, but we can discuss that along the way.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question I had. Mr. Ando, then, so do you foresee the contributions being reduced by doing this, perhaps?
I don't want to necessarily commit just yet. However, we, as one of the task orders that this board just approved, we'll be working with TTI to kind of forecast what would be ETA's fair share of those 5307 funds based on the levels of service we provide in the El Paso urbanized area. which will help form the basis of working with Sun Metro through their service expansion policy. And then that will also then determine what the local contributions from the jurisdictions.
Okay,
I'll say that I'm very frugal, so we'll strive to keep the contributions as low and reasonable as possible, but I can't commit until we see what those costs will be based on our future operating and capital budget and what the analysis produces and what Sun Metro ultimately negotiates with us on.
understood, thank you.
Mr. Ando, how long do you anticipate this process to take?
With my experience doing this in other areas of the country, it can take as much as 9 months to a year. So we're, upon board's action, we'll get right on this quickly, working with TTI and Sun Metro, so we could bring ultimately an agreement before this board to review and ultimately get a split letter so that we can be prepared for fiscal year 27 to start utilizing 5307 funds.
That's the urgency of getting this done
Yes,
quickly.
because we are going to have a significant cut from TxDOT by fiscal year 27
Oh, we
because
are?
of the fact that our routes are no longer in the rural area.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case.
And on page, if you want to kind of see a perspective of our service, if you look on page 101 of your packet, you'll be able to see a map of the El Paso urbanized area, our routes that are presently in operation, and you'll basically see the lion's share of the routes being in the El Paso urbanized area, with the exception of Route 40, Route 20, and a small portion of Route 10 being in the rural area. And then we have our van pools, and the lion's share of our van pools also originate and terminate in the El Paso urbanized area. So that's also going to contribute to the funding increases in the El Paso urbanized area.
I see. Okay, any other questions or comments? I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Butler and a second from Mr. Condi, is that right?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move on to agenda item 5D. Review and provide comments on the proposed fiscal year 2026 service plan for the development of the FY26 operating and capital budget. Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to turn this over to the Texas Transportation Institute. They will do a presentation about the upcoming fiscal year 26 service plan and the upcoming contribution requests that we would be asking the members for contributing to the transit system for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, thank you very much. Just want to check that everyone can hear me okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Michael Walk with Texas A&M Transportation Institute. I'm also accompanied by my colleague Christina Bune, who helped put together this service and financial plan for FY26. Next slide, please. If you've seen this presentation before, the contents are very similar to what you have seen previously. We're going to start with a quick overview of the methodology. We'll walk through the service plan for FY26, how we forecasted the costs of those services in FY26, what we forecasted the revenues to be in FY26, and ultimately what the final contribution amounts are for FY26. There'll obviously be time for discussion, and we'll also talk a little bit about next steps. Next slide. So in terms of the methodology of this calculating the contribution amounts, it all starts with the service plan. We determine which routes and services will be in operation and figure out how many revenue hours and miles will be in operation during FY26. The next step is to turn that service plan into costs. Next, you have to advance. Thank you. So then we forecast operational costs based on your purchase transportation agreements with your contractors. We also calculate administrative and planning costs that will be incurred during FY26 and include any other costs in the financial plan. For example, the ADA paratransit eligibility and quality assurance contractor and what their services will cost for the fiscal year. Next, please. After we know how much everything will cost, we then work with the revenues, we forecast and apply fair revenue, right, revenues collected at the fare box, as well as forecast federal and state grants that will be used during FY26, apply those revenues to the costs that we had forecasted. Next slide, please. Next click, thank you. Once we factor in revenues, essentially it's costs minus revenues equals what remaining costs are to be shared among the EPATS members. Next. Then we take that shared cost and distribute it among EPATS members. We set up cost allocation variables. We allocate the contribution needed for fixed route separately first. We then calculate the ADA contribution, ADA paratransit contribution, and then we calculate the administrative and planning costs contribution. In the end, the county assumes all costs and contributions that are not assigned to another member entity. Next slide, please. Just a couple key notes. You will see throughout this presentation that the financial plan looks at all ETA services. This includes not only fixed route and ADA paratransit, but also the van pool service and the intercity bus services. Of course, members of EPATS only share in the costs attributable to fixed route bus and ADA paratransit. The financial plan does not include any capital costs, so future plans obviously should, as Mr. Ando hinted at, future capital plans might leverage 5307 funds if they come in. This plan does not include capital costs. We did apply a 10% contingency on top of purchase transportation costs, so how much it costs to run the fixed route and ADA paratransit. That was increased by 10% just as a contingency or a buffer. One thing you will note also in this presentation is that the revenue hours associated with ADA paratransit service is actually lower in FY26 than what was forecasted in FY25. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we get into it. Essentially, the FY25 forecast of ADA paratransit revenue hours was higher than what was operated in reality. So we needed to back down our assumptions regarding how much ADA paratransit service would actually be operated in FY26. Another significant change in the methodology for this particular financial plan is that there were several administrative and planning costs that traditionally we assumed would be funded partially through federal or state money and then partially through local funds. Because of the nature of where these costs are paid out of, particularly those that are paid directly by the COG, those costs are not actually being paid at all with federal or state funds. And so we updated the financial plan to better match that reality that some of these admin and planning costs are 100% local, 100% out of contributions. Next slide, please. Also, you will note, as Mr. Ando referred to, that we did apply the fund balance to the FY26 contributions. Now, the direction that we were given here is to take that fund balance, figure out how much it should be by the end of FY25, and then apply that fund balance to all members' contributions. So you can see that the projected fund balance through the end of FY25 was estimated to be $996,891. That includes all FY23, FY24, and the FY25 fund balance, assuming a receipt of the $752,600 contribution from El Paso County for FY25. And of course, also assumes the receipt of Clint's $12,600. So factoring in those two additional payments in FY25, the fund balance is projected to equate to 62% of what was needed for FY26 contributions. So essentially, we took that money, that almost $1 million in fund balance, and discounted everyone's contribution by 62%, because that was the equivalent discount, essentially, we could give everyone. So that's the approach we took to apply the fund balance to FY26 contributions. You will see what that looks like as we get into the rest of the slides. And it's important to note that this does not account for any sort of historical member-specific payment realities or contribution amounts. We took all of the amount that was available and applied it to everybody equally going forward into FY26. Next slide. So for the service plan, very quickly, next slide. We kept fixed route service as is. Obviously, Route 84 no longer is operational. Route 50 has been extended into Clint. ADA paratransit service continues as is, including we did assume that service would continue for ADA paratransit within the city of Socorro. We did reduce the revenue hours forecasted for ADA paratransit to better align with actual usage. I mentioned that in a prior slide. Vanpool and intercity bus did not have any planned changes. Next slide. So when you boil that down to the number of revenue hours, which is the key variable that leads into costs, this slide compares FY25's revenue hour forecast with FY26 revenue hour forecast. You can see fixed route bus is essentially flat. It's a small reduction in revenue hours, and that's because of the Route 84 discontinuation. ADA paratransit is a pretty significant reduction in the forecast, again, because we aligned the revenue hours with better with reality. Next slide, please.
I have a question on that, Michael.
Yes.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible, because ADA is still fairly new for us, that we will see the actuals increase over the next year? How long have we been offering ADA paratransit now?
January.
So to answer your question, yes, usage of ADA paratransit will continue to increase. We took the growth that we've seen since inception, which I believe was August or September of 2024, and forecasted, looked at that growth, and particularly the most recent months, and we forecasted the later months' growth into the future. So the assumptions for FY26 do assume service will continue to increase. It's just that slope of the line originally was very sharp. You know, we assumed that growth would be very fast using the tools of the trade, but now we have real growth trends to look at, and so we flattened that line in our forecast to better align with the growth rates you've actually been seeing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so once we knew the revenue hours associated with all the services, then we went to forecasting the costs. I'm not going to walk through every number on the slide here. This is just documentation, so you know what our cost assumptions were for the purchase transportation, which is the first row in this table. And we used the rates that were in the latest best and final offer documents that we saw. We did include a cost per hour, we included a startup fee, and we included a monthly fixed fee. Again, that's based on what the documentation for year one pricing for the contractor. The second row in the table is your eligibility and quality assurance contractor, or MTM. Again, we used year one pricing. Because their services are dedicated to ADA paratransit, their costs are only applied to ADA paratransit. Next slide, please. We also factored in the administrative and planning expenses. This table lays those out for you. We included staff, labor, and fringe, including some new positions that Mr. Ando is hoping to acquire in FY26. We also included legal, the COG, administrative, marketing, staff development, auditing, etc. You'll see a few costs in this table have an asterisk on them. That asterisk are those costs with an asterisk are costs that are fully funded with local funds only, right? So there's no federal or state share in those costs. And that is because those costs are being paid directly by COG out of member contributions, rather than there being a reimbursement cycle trying to get federal funds to cover those things. On the planning side, there's a current demand response service planning study going on. It's task order 10. There's been prior presentations on that study, so there are costs remaining for that, which is covered by federal grants. So we wanted to make sure that was shown here in the financial plan. And last is approximately $90,000 for other ad hoc planning and management studies needed. Several of those were approved in the consent agenda items, including our help with the 5307 forecast, for example. Next slide.
I have a quick question on that slide,
Yes.
Nicole. Maybe this is a question for Mr. Ando. Are we anticipating hiring a marketing firm again?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, if my lights turn off, I will be doing a weird dance to turn them back on. Not excessively professional, but I can't help it. So when we add up all of the forecasted transportation costs, the quality assurance, the admin and planning, and there's also a Sun Metro licensing fee, which is for ETA use of the transfer centers that Sun Metro owns. Everything adds up to a total of approximately $7 million. Next slide. Now that we have the costs, then we can get to the revenue forecasting. Next slide. Again, a lot of the data here is provided for your reference. So we did forecast fare revenues. This is laid out for you so you can see what we did. We did assume there'd be a few fare-free days. We did try to forecast ADA paratransit ridership, right? Again, using those growth rates I talked about earlier. It's not so aggressive, but we used that data in order to forecast these fare revenues. Those are applied first to the cost, so almost $200,000 in fares. Next slide. Then we apply the grant revenues that are available. You'll see here a lot of detail, but if you focus on the funding source, the left column, you'll see the different grants that were used to apply to the costs in FY26. So there's some funds left over in, for instance, the FY 2025 Section 5311 grant from TxDOT. That's the rural service grant that Mr. Ando was referring to earlier that will likely be reduced in the future because of the urbanization. So you can see all the different grants that we used in the leftmost column. Those grants all have budget line items in them. You can see what we used from those line items, and in total applied $7.7 million in grant funds. Now, you might see those two numbers and say, Michael, on the prior slide, you said the total service cost was around $7 million. That was just for the EPATS participating services, right? Fixed route and ADA paratransit plus associated admin and planning. The number you see here is for everything. So we apply grant revenues also to the intercity bus gold route and the van pool program. So you're seeing all revenues that we used that ETA has access to. Next slide. So we have all the costs. We apply all the revenues and the fares, and then we're left with contributions. Next slide. So the total local share needed before the fund balance adjustment, right? That 62% discount that I talked about earlier because of the fund balance. The total local share needed is about $1.6 million. And that would equate to about $800,000 for fixed route, $300,000 and change for ADA, and then almost $450,000 for admin and planning. So again, this is before the fund balance is applied. These would have been the local share allocations and the payments that would be needed. Next slide. So after applying the fund balance, that's go back. Thank you. After applying the fund balance, almost that $1 million, approximately $1 million, then the local share needed is actually $605,700. And so these are the contribution ratios that we're going to be using to allocate all the costs to each jurisdiction and the contributions to each jurisdiction. So for fixed route bus, everyone is paying 39 cents per mile in their jurisdiction. For ADA paratransit, everyone is paying 85 cents per person in the ADA paratransit service area. And for admin and planning, everyone is paying 15 cents on the dollar of admin and planning costs. Next slide. And then the next activity we have to do, since for fixed route bus, all members pay per mile is figure out how many miles are in each jurisdiction. We do this by route. Again, this is for you as backup, so you can see where we got the numbers from and know how many miles were actually assigned to each member in FY26. Next slide. And when you turn those miles into 39 cents per mile, this ultimately is the allocation for fixed route. So you can see, for instance, the city of Anthony has 18,157 miles in it. The cost of the service is about $5.25 per mile. So you can see that the value of the service or cost of the service in Anthony is $95,400. The contribution from Anthony for that service is 39 cents per mile, or approximately $7,000. Note, we round everything to the nearest $100 just because, it would get really fine-tuned to have just a bunch of dollars down to the nearest dollar. So this is the fixed route contribution. Next slide. We did the ADA paratransit contribution. The contributions are based on population, ADA service area population. So these are the numbers for how many people live inside the ADA paratransit service area from each member city. Next slide. For every person that lives in the ADA paratransit service area in each city, each member pays 85 cents per person. The value of the service, or the actual cost of the service, is actually $11.45 per person. So again, here you can see what the contributions are in the rightmost column for ADA paratransit. Next slide, please. And lastly, it's the admin and planning costs. So the way that we allocate admin and planning to members is based on how much fixed route and ADA paratransit costs are assigned to each city. So we take those prior slides, which assigned fixed route and ADA costs to each city. We figure out how much that is, and then we allocate admin and planning costs to each city proportionate to this cost of the actual service. So that's how we calculate the total operational cost column for admin and planning. And then every member pays 15 cents per dollar of assigned cost, which is the far right column. Next slide, please. So when you add up everything, the fixed route contribution amount, the ADA paratransit contribution amount, and the admin and planning contribution amount, this is the total contributions leading into FY26. Again, assuming the fund balance is applied the way that we did. Next slide, please. So a couple of key takeaways. We remember that we applied the fund balance toward contribution amounts. The cost allocation and contribution allocations were based on miles for fixed route bus, ADA population for ADA paratransit, and we use service costs to allocate admin and planning to each member entity. Of course, we keep using these variables. Are the same variables we've used every year up to this point. So the variables stay the same, but the values will change from year to year depending on how much revenue we have available to apply. And the bottom line is that local share is 9 cents on the dollar of actual operational costs, right? Again, this is after applying the fund balance, which is why it's lower than what we've had in the past. So that $606,000 worth of contributions cover over $7 million in service and admin and planning costs. Next slide. All right, so we'll stop there and open it up for any other questions, conversation, or discussion.
Before we open it up to questions, I want to apologize to Mr. Castañeda. I didn't introduce him as our newest board member from the town of Anthony. And I'll actually give you the honor of asking any questions first on this as our newbie.
I'm just trying to absorb all the information for my first meeting, so
Yes.
I'll withhold any questions so far.
Understood. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? It's good news. We're getting a discount this year. Go ahead, Mr. Emkes.
So I had a few questions. First question was related to the allocations. I believe the board had asked previously when TTI was looking at this to come up with an option for Sun Metro's contribution, if that were the case. So I just wanted to see, it wasn't in the presentation, but wanted to see if TTI had, what came with that.
That's going to be part of the exercise that they're going to be doing in task orders 3 and 4.
Okay.
So as part of our negotiations. Yeah.
Coming soon then.
Coming soon, yes.
The next few questions I had were really to the board for the fund balance. And I know when this came up, I think it was last year, it's treated budget to budget. I think the discussion was whether there was a policy needed for how it's used as a strategic approach. Whether it's an emergency operating fund for 30, 60, 90 days, whether you use it for capital improvements, whether there's a percentage or ratio back towards the member contributions. So just a reminder, I don't know if that's still a board priority or not to really say how we're going to treat it from year to year rather than just budget to budget. One thing that we ran into at the city with our interlocal agreements where we had member contributions is that sometimes when you do give a discount or a rebate or whatever the fund balance would be acting for in this case, then the next year, if you don't have that fund balance, the contribution goes way up. The member councils are like, wow, we only paid this much, short-term memory, right? So you do get volatility from year to year. So just a heads up on that, whether you want to give the full or a portion, but just managing that fund balance, I think, is very important, especially from a emergency operating fund perspective. So, just
Madam Chair, may I add a comment?
Yes, please.
So in relation to your comment, we are proposing to actually draft an operating and capital budget for this board to adopt. And as part of that, we're basically consolidating the LGC budget, the county general fund budget, and the county grant budget into one comprehensive document. And as part of that, we're going to include things like funds for reserves and things like that. I do intend to bring before this board a fund reserve policy so that as we build these budgets in the future, we have a particular percentage of funds that we're just holding in reserves for like emergencies and whatnot. So more to come on that. And this will be the first time that we've been able to consolidate all these 3 budgets into one document so we can have better financial management of the funds that we're receiving, whether it's from county grants or from the members.
and if this budget's or the allocations are adopted today, will this fully liquidate the fund balance to this point?
It would, but we're not asking for adoption today. We're just asking for board comments so that TTI can then reproduce, and then we'll come back by September with
But these numbers reflect a fully liquidating that.
that is
fund
correct.
balance. Okay.
Yes. But it will take into consideration a fund reserve policy and whatnot, which I'll bring back in a future meeting.
Other questions?
And let me just add one more thing, I'm sorry.
Yes.
One thing to note too is that what's been happening is the fund balance that we have that's being held by the Rio Grande Council of Governments, there has been no mechanism to tie that to the county transit operation. So we're trying to change that with next fiscal year's budget so that those funds are now being applied to the county transit operation until that day when that operation fully transfers over to the LGC.
Sounds good.
So it might be a necessary one-time transaction out of the fund balance, but like you said, Mr. Himkus, it's not gonna be the same for following years, or we shouldn't expect it to be.
Correct. And we need to add language in the upcoming interlocal agreements to mention what we're doing so that the councils are fully aware that this is a one-year thing. However, next year we'll be back at our normal levels, at the levels that we were at fiscal year 25, inflated to whatever the cost would be in fiscal year 27. And one thing we could do, and I'll talk with TTI, is we could show a table that shows what the contributions would be without the fund balance, and then a table with the credit. So at least the councils are aware that this would have been the amount, but because we have some fund balance, this is the amount for this fiscal year.
Great. think all our budgets can use a little bit of relief this fiscal year, so hopefully that's well taken. Mr. Walk, one of the, I think, critiques I've heard about this process is the fluctuation of the numbers. And you said, the variables stay the same, but the values change. And that's just a little bit confusing, even for me still. And so I think it's an exercise in trust in the experts who work in transit every day, who understand what this is, and also that we know the services are being rendered and the ridership numbers are there. But how could we better explain the variation and the change in the numbers? Even, I'm looking at a presentation from a couple of weeks ago that has different numbers on it. So how can we explain that to our boards and commissions and other potential community partners?
It's a very good question. One of the things that we've tried to do is start to communicate this idea that members pay, a certain amount per mile and per person, right? And that's that number, how much you pay per mile and per person, is the same for everyone, right? Everyone pays 15 cents per mile or 50 cents a person, whatever those values are. We think that is a little bit clearer and comprehensible for members, rather than saying you pay X percent, right? But to your point, last time you said it costs 25 cents per mile, and now this time it costs 15 cents per mile. What is happening? Or it goes up, right? And so how that gets communicated in the most succinct way, I don't know that I've cracked the nut on that yet. The reality is, once you know what the costs are, if the revenues that are available change, if the grant revenues change, right, are either less or more, even if costs are constant, in the end, that the difference has to come from local funds. And that's one of the biggest causes of fluctuation from year to year, is even if the cost of service is relatively constant, when there's less grant revenue or more revenue available, that will cause everyone's contribution to shift. So I don't know if I'm being helpful in a succinct way of.
Is it fair to say this is basically a revenue-driven budgeting process, right?
Because we factor in both costs and known revenues, right, every time, then that is why everybody's contribution changes. We try to minimize the contribution amount every year by applying all the revenues that we see that are available. Hence the fluctuation.
I think it's also worth noting transit operations are very complex, in both on funding and on operating cost. And probably the first 7 to 10 years, you're going to see more volatility just because you're building it from the ground up. After you reach that horizon, it should be a lot more stable, because how you're gathering the data has remained consistent. The sources of revenues you have are probably more consistent. One thing you can do is some smoothing. Instead of doing it year to year, having some multi-year smoothing effects so that you don't see as great a volatility. But when you're dealing with grant year budgets and things like that, that may not be an option, but that's one way you can kind of mitigate larger variations, especially up front. But
I had a question for Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker, maybe I missed it on the presentation, but do we account for inflation somehow in your projections?
So in a way, yes. So the bulk of the service costs that influence the cost side of the equation here are all driven by contracted rates, right? Rates that are already locked into the contract. So the contractor hopefully will have taken account for that in when they set their rates per hour and what their fixed fees were. We do add 10% contingency on top of whatever the contractor said their rates were, just to offset the chance that there's something out of the blue that the contractor didn't anticipate and they choose to try to renegotiate. The other types of costs, like the planning and the admin costs, all are based on the best estimates we can have at this time. Because we're looking only at 1 year, we've forecasted this next year of costs based on everything we've known what the cost will likely be. In a multi-year plan, right, there'll be more need for more aggressive escalation assumptions.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question okay?
Yes, sir.
Or did
Thank
I? Okay.
Very helpful, thank you. Do we need a action on this, Annette?
I don't believe we're going to have any action on this item because it's just a presentation for today.
Okay.
We'll come back before this board with a budget that takes into consideration what the proposed contribution amounts are, so that that can be forwarded to each of the governing bodies for consideration.
Sounds great.
Madam Chair, quick question for Mr. Ando. Mr. Ando, so can we take this preliminary number to
Yes.
cities for, because we're in budget season now.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you.
And what we'll do is we'll send like a formal correspondence to each of you to bring to you before your governing bodies, or at least for your budget process, that this is a preliminary number, and we should have a fine-tuned number closer. Let's see, we'd like to have this adopted by September, so I'd say next month.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ando, will you be available if any of the governing bodies want to have you at when these budgets are
Yes, I was
considered?
actually planning on going to each of the governing bodies' meetings to present our requested amount and answer any questions that they may have about it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so before we move on to agenda item 5E, I just want to note that Mr. Joel Bishop is joining us today online. I don't know if he'll be able to have his video, so we'll determine that if we're able to count him towards the quorum, but just wanted to make note that he is listening in.
Hi, Joel.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 5E. This is to approve and authorize the director to meet with the city of Socorro regarding opportunities to join the El Paso Transportation Authority and report back to the board with options for consideration. Mr. Ando?
So just really quickly, I have personally met with the mayor of Socorro recently. I don't think the door is completely closed with working with Socorro moving forward. And even though they've basically set up and started running their own mini transit service, I think having Mr. Ando on board will help us to renew some of those discussions and negotiations. And Mr. Ando already has some ideas on how to maybe approach those conversations. So do you have any comments, Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. What I'm proposing is we engage a meeting with the city of Socorro. As I understand from studying their transit development plan, their major focus is they want to do microtransit. They don't necessarily want fixed route bus or ADA paratransit. So we present a proposal to them that perhaps utilizing Transdev as our operating and maintenance contractor, that we provide that microtransit service for them under the ETA brand, and then that they pay the cost for Transdev to provide that service based on Transdev's rates, and then we apply a portion of the administrative costs of ETA to that proposal to Socorro, which would then be their contribution to the transit system. We would still have our fixed routes bypass and paratransit bypass the city limits, and people who would utilize this ETA-operated microtransit service in the city of Socorro would just transfer to our services at the Sun Metro Transit Center at the city limit line. And then should the city envision wanting to contribute to the fixed route system at a later date, we would then revisit the contributions amounts to include their share of the fixed route costs into that budget. So I figured that's kind of like an approach to have them at least consider us providing transit on their behalf versus them using their city forces to provide the service. And then I'm going to have Jesus just give a brief summary. He did a little test ride to see how the service operated, and so you get a perspective of what's going on over there.
Good afternoon, Jesus Serna, transit planner. Correct. On Monday, I actually rode their transit system, and I arrived at the transit center at Alameda and Zaragoza, and I called the number that they have. It's calling the Rio Vista Recreation Center, and you tell them I'm here. I want to go to City Hall. That was my route. I tell them I want to go to City Hall. I learned that they have 3 routes. They have an Alameda route, Socorro Road route, and North Loop route. So when I got there, there was a North Loop route. So they advised me to call the number that they provided, and they sent an Alameda route for me. It took them about 20 to 25 minutes to get there. Once the driver got there, he told me, where was I going? I told him City Hall, straight there. There was another passenger that got on board with me. He came out with one of our ETA transit routes, and they dropped me off. I arrived there within 15 minutes. It was a Chrysler van, 4 or 5 passengers, depending on the person's body frame. It was a little tight. And after that, I walked from City Hall to the Walgreens on North Loop and Horizon, and I called again to get my ride back to the transit center. And that one took about almost 30 minutes. The driver did say, if you call in advance, you're prioritized, your drop-off. But since I called, they were available. It wasn't bad. It's a free ride. All in all, the experience, it's good. Their customer service is great too. But what I really like is that our riders already figured out how to get into the Socorro system. When I saw our riders get off an ETA vehicle and calling already having a ride schedule, that van was there for them to pick up. So I'm grateful that our riders figured it out, and I hope they join at one point. But as it is right now, it's free for now. But it was a good experience.
And so what I'm envisioning is that a better way to just give that true seamless regional system versus what we have, what Cerna provided to us, is that we can have a seamless transfer approach with us running the fixed route system and potentially their microtransit program. Perhaps our dispatchers can coordinate vehicles to meet passengers at the transfer center, seamless fare, seamless transfer approach, which will just make the customer experience more palatable. And we can also use technology that we're planning on having as part of the upcoming contract. Happy to answer any questions about our approach, if there are any.
A quick question from Mr. Ando. So if Socorro was to accept that proposal, then they would become essentially a member again, once again?
They'll become a member based on them paying the full cost for the microtransit service that they want, plus an administrative cost based on a proportional share of what they're, based on using TTI's metrics, based on our administrative costs to manage that microtransit system for them.
Thank you. That's a good approach. Thank you.
I think it's a fair compromise, and also I think leaving the door open for other solutions and partnership opportunities.
Particularly in Horizon City, with us potentially running fixed routes in their city. This could also help set the stage that us being this new LGC, that we could do mobility solutions for any jurisdiction based on what makes sense for that jurisdiction versus forcing a mode that they may not necessarily want to have operating in that respective jurisdiction.
Yeah, I was going to say, really appreciate that because we do have a lot of folks that come over from Socorro to Horizon City and back, back and forth. So getting it back on would be really great.
So do we have a motion for Mr. Ando to move forward with those discussions with Socorro?
Motion?
I second.
I have a motion from Ms. Carrillo, and I'm sorry, who was the second?
Me, Eric Conde.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're now on to Agenda Item 5F. This is to review the current organizational structure of the El Paso Transportation Authority and authorize the director to reorganize the organizational structure in conjunction with El Paso County Human Resources and as part of fiscal year 2026 budget process, subject to legal review and approval. Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board. This item basically is to show what our current organizational structure is and what I'm proposing to include as part of the budget, as you just heard from TTI. So as you see on your screen, our current structure is set up as follows. Because the grants are still held by the county, we have the El Paso County Commissioners Court. Then we have the ETA board that is processing actions for the Commissioners Court to consider. Then there is my role as the Director of Transit Operations. We have a transit planner, which is Jesus. We have the Associate Transportation Planner, which is Rena. And then we have the Administrative Specialist Senior, which is Anna. We do have a vacant Senior Transit Project Manager that I have opted to not fill at this moment, pending the board's consideration of a reorganization. Presently, the Transit Planner oversees TransDev, and then the Associate Transportation Planner oversees Enterprise, Vanpool, and the New Mexico Park and Ride Service. Go to the next slide, please. This is the proposed organizational structure, which will set up ETA ultimately to be able to have the appropriate staffing resources to function as a independent authority. Basically, that includes my role as the executive director, Jesus operating as the transit operations program manager. Under him, he would have a transit operations specialist. We would then convert the senior transit project manager into an accounting office manager, which will basically be our finance manager for ETA. And under that person would be a grant and compliance specialist that would facilitate procurement, manage the grants, and ensure that we're complying with FTA and TxDOT requirements. Rena would be the transit planning program manager and oversee all transit planning activities. And under her, there would be a mobility manager that would facilitate marketing activities, community relations, and doing mobility solution management, supporting her. And then we have our administrative specialist senior that would act as the board secretary and office manager and provide support to each of the positions that I've shown on this chart. On the next slide. Since we're still county employees, this kind of just gives an explanation of the positions. The black and red titles is basically what I'm proposing as like the working title, and in blue in the parentheses is the county title until we're able to create our own job descriptions. So my role as the executive director would oversee ETA's activities. The role of the administrative specialist senior would support the executive director, perform clerical duties, act as the board secretary, records management, community outreach support, and administrative support. The transit operations program manager, which is the transit planner, would oversee all transit contracts, vanpool contracts, transit technology coordination, facility management, asset management, and safety oversight. As we get into FTA 5307, we're going to have to do a TAM plan, Transit Assets Management Plan, and a public transportation agency safety plan, where we have to be involved in ensuring that the transit system is safe. So Jesus would facilitate those type of activities. Under him would be a contract coordinator, which would go out in the field and monitor ETA services and provide necessary support to the transit operations program manager. The accounting office manager will manage ETA's finances, budgets, accounting, human resources, payroll, grants, liaison with county auditor, and that's basically reclassifying the senior transit project manager position. The grant and compliance specialist would basically manage our grants, compliance with other agencies, handle our civil rights as it relates to the ADA, Title VI, equal opportunity, and disadvantaged business enterprise. Handle procurement and liaison with county purchasing. The Transit Planning Program Manager, which is the Associate Transportation Planner, will facilitate all transit service planning activities, bus stop planning, short and long-range planning, marketing, community outreach, strategic planning, and project management and GIS. And that would be Rena. And then our Mobility Manager, which is the Human Services Transportation Plan Coordinator, would do customer service and travel training, and we'll pursue 5310 funding to help cover the cost of this position through El Paso MPO's 5310 program, since they're the designated recipient of those funds when they have their next call for projects. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. I should also add that these positions that we would like to add are being incorporated into the operating and capital budget should this board approve my proposal, as well as was reflected in the proposed contributions from the members as shown in the slides by TTI.
Sorry, quick question. So, for clarification, in blue are the ones that currently exist, with the exception of the accounting office manager, right?
So the ones in blue is the official county title, and then the ones in black and red would be the working title.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
And-
was looking at the org chart.
Oh, the old chart. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you don't
So-
mind going back to the old chart, please. You mean the proposed organizational structure?
Yeah, the second.
Okay, in the next chart. So yeah, so the only positions that exist under the proposed organizational structure is the executive director, transit operations program manager, transit planning program manager, and administrative specialist senior. We do have a vacant position, which I'm proposing to reclassify as the accounting office manager. So we're budgeted for 5 employees right now. And I'm proposing to add basically 3 with 1 reclassification.
So add 3 and then reclassify 1, right?
Correct.
That you have vacant right now.
Yes.
So 3 additional FTEs?
3 additional FTEs, yes. And looking at transit systems our size, this is an appropriate staff number for being able to manage the multiple grants and being able to be responsible to FTA and TxDOT's requirements. And I foresee, unless the system expands, I think this would be a sufficient number of staff for the foreseeable future.
And last question is, Mr. Ando, on the transit operations manager, you have a specialist, and in the accounting office manager, you also have a specialist, but on the transit planning program manager, you have another manager under that?
That's the working title, but the official title is Human Services Transportation Coordinator.
Okay.
And normally, a lot of transit agencies are creating what is called a mobility manager, not necessarily a manager position, but they're basically managing mobility options.
Okay.
So like teaching people how to use the bus. If people call us wanting information on how to get from here to Las Cruces, being able to plan that trip effectively utilizing Sun Metro, ETA, Roadrunner, and the New Mexico New Mexico Park and Ride Express.
Sorry, one last question is, you said one of them would be covered by the 5310 funded grant, right? But the others would be pretty much impacting the...
That is correct. Normally, mobility manager is in a eligible 5310 expense, so I'd like us to capitalize on that grant opportunity.
So we'd be covering 2 from our existing budget, right?
Say that question again, I'm sorry.
We would be covering 2 positions? One would be
In
covered
theory,
by the-
yes, you'll be covering 2 positions, and then the third would be through a 5310 grant.
Okay.
And then we would, of course, still have to provide the appropriate local match, which I haven't seen El Paso MPO's requirements, but generally that is an 80-20, 80% federal, 20% local.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, I'm sorry, some stuff came up,
No
so
worries.
I'll follow up on that. So then, would this include, I guess, increases for everybody, or?
The budget would include appropriate salary increases based on the county's classification scale policies.
Okay.
And we actually have gotten those amounts from the county budgeting office, so that also has been provided to TTI. So we got into the details. We went even as far as benefit costs and wage step increases, so that the number you saw earlier today does take that into consideration already.
Oh, it does, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
The county this year is taking a no salary increase budget, unfortunately. But as we move forward with solidifying ETA's budget as a separate entity, I think maybe starting next year, that'll be under the purview of the board.
Correct.
Salary increases, separate from the county.
Correct. And we'll have to adopt appropriate fiscal policies, human resources policies, which over the course of the year I'll be bringing before this board for consideration. So until, if and when we become ETA direct employees, we have to follow the county's processes. And I think this kind of is similar to like the Camino Real Mobility Authority as well as the El Paso MPO, where they, in theory, buy services from the city of El Paso, follow their processes per se, but they're still independent from the city of El Paso.
Okay, so that's the end goal, to make the ETA independent of the county. It'd still be under the county, but I guess operate on its own.
So it would be an independent authority. However, we would buy services from the county. And you'll see a master agreement later on this year that would basically spell out the services we would buy from the county and the roles and responsibilities of ETA and the county, similar to what the El Paso MPO and the CRRMA has with the city of El Paso.
Oh, okay, I see. So it'd be like approaching it like indirect costs, perhaps?
That is
Through
correct.
grants? Okay.
Yes. But ETA would be paying those direct costs through the grants.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, yes.
And the vision. Mr. Ando, I just wanted to mention, I think your second or third week on the job, you presented this proposal to TxDOT.
That is correct, yes.
And they seemed very pleased with the planning, this organizational planning for
That's correct,
ETA.
yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to make it clear to the board members that the FTA 5310 funding that the MPO awards, it is a competitive process. And, the demand for it fluctuates from project call to project call. But the last time we did it, we do 2 years at one time. We were not able to fully fund all of the requests that came in. So it's just something to be aware of. It doesn't mean that the mobility manager position isn't a good idea, but it's going to depend on whether that funding is available and the willingness of the MPO to award it.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Eric Rosales Negaglione, Assistant County Attorney. For this item, I know Mr. Ando posted it subject to legal review and approval. So we have reviewed it, and our guidance is really just what you all are saying, but just to reiterate, connecting, as long as they are county employees funded by county grant funds, we've just directed Mr. Ando to work with county human resources and also with grant compliance for TxDOT, right, with the county to ensure compliance on our end and on their end. That's all.
Thank you, Erica. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the organizational structure proposed by Mr. Ando.
Second. I have a motion from Commissioner Butler and a second from Ms. Carrillo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry. This takes us now to agenda item 5G. This is to approve and authorize the El Paso Transportation Authority Director's secondary employment and leadership activities. Mr. Ando?
I'll just make a comment before handing it off to Mr. Ando. So board, we did discuss this at length at previous board meetings and during our contract negotiations with Mr. Ando, that he will be allowed to enter into secondary employment and leadership activities under his role as the ETA Executive Director. And so we've asked Mr. Ando to disclose that in order for us to be able to take action and approve of those activities. So I'll hand it over to him now to specify what those are, and then we can discuss.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. On page 287 of your packet. As I discussed with this board during the interview process, I've listed the present organizations that I'm doing transit work with. The first one is the City of Burlington in North Carolina. Been with them for about 4 years. I spend about 10 hours a week doing their work, and I visit them monthly. And I've listed the duties that I do as part of my role with the City of Burlington. City of Escalon, I've been with them for 25 years. I do about 10 hours per month with them, and I visit them monthly. City of Lathrop, I basically help them with grants. Escalon is in California, Lathrop's also in California, and I help them with grants. I've helped them implement a new microtransit system, and I'm updating their transit plan, and I'm helping them receive FTA direct recipient status. And I've been spending about 5 to 10 hours per month, and that's solely remote. City of Ripon, I've been with them, and I apologize. Lathrop, I just started with them in May of 25. City of Ripon, I've been with them for 2 years, since May of 23. I basically just do their grants, provide advice on public transit, review transit documents, and I do that for them on an on-call basis, about 1 to 2 hours per month. And then Reading Area Bus Authority, that's where I was before coming here. I'm providing transitional support to an interim transit manager, participate in various meetings, closing out projects, and I've been doing about 5 to 15 hours per week, and that'll continue through October 31 of 25, and I'm visiting them weekly. I'm just requesting that the board allow me to continue to do these projects. And per the employment agreement, I will convert these agreements from employment to contract. I should state that I am presently under contract with Lathrop and Ripon, whereas Burlington and Escalon would become contracts instead of actual being an employee of them. And then on the leadership activities, since I've been leading public transit systems for several years, I've been on various boards and commissions. That's on page 288 and 289 of the board packet. And that's just a list of all the boards and commissions that I participate in. A lot of them are remote, and they will provide benefit to ETA by me participating in these various commissions or committees, whether it's with the American Public Transportation Association, the COMTO, Transportation Cooperative Research Board, Association for Commuter Transportation, and the Bus Coalition, the National RTAP Review Board. And then I've also have various certifications that I have received from these entities. And then being in Texas, I intend to participate in the Texas Transit Association, the Southwest Transit Association, the El Paso MPO committees, any committees that either the CRRMA have, Sun Metro, Rio Grande, Council of Governments, TxDOT, and then the Far West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordinating Committee. Any committees that you see on this list that relates to Shasta County, I intend to resign as part of my transitional away from the Reading Area Bus Authority. Happy to answer any questions about this, if there are any.
Mr. Ando, you don't look very sleep deprived, but you must be.
I can tell you I do have fun on weekends. I go to Disney World. I'm a theme park junkie, so, and I do love to travel. So it may look like I work a lot, and I do, because this transit is a passion for me, but I also do have time away and quality of life and get a step away from doing work projects.
Okay.
I also want to preface that this organization will be my first priority. So even if I have responsibilities at these other entities, if I have to be here on a day off, for instance, I will still prioritize and be here on that day off and defer the work at the other entities.
Mr. Ando, just a couple of questions for you on that.
Sure.
So just for clarification, you're saying that all these are all contracts, so they're more consulting type work or actual?
Burlington and Escalon, I'm an actual employee. So per my contract, I need to convert them to being a consultant. So that's what I've started the process with those cities to do. So I'll still perform the functions that I'm doing for them now, but it'd be more as an independent contractor versus a actual employee of those entities.
And the other question, now, you will have reviews, so you understand that if there's any potential that any of that is in conflict, I mean, that would possibly affect the review.
Say that
Performance
statement again.
evaluation.
On the performance evaluation, what I'm saying is, if any of your consulting would come into conflict with that, that could be a potential for something like that coming up on your evaluation,
Yes, yes, I recognize that.
you understand that?
Yes.
Where do you find the time? Well, that's a lot.
Well, with time zones, it actually works in my favor.
Okay.
Because the East Coast is 2 hours ahead of us. So I generally do projects for Burlington early in the morning. And then the West Coast is 1 hour behind us. So I can do projects in the evening time and also in the morning time as well.
So you
These
have a-
systems are small transit systems.
Okay.
So a lot of it is just day-to-day repetitive functions, such as like doing quarterly reports in FTA tram, for instance, or responding to customer emails or complaints or concerns, reviewing invoices to pay contractors. So it's not like work that really warrants me to be physically sitting in an office to complete.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, I think there is like a lot of benefit in that, with you having all that knowledge and then continuing it with like different municipalities and stuff, and then all the membership in those organizations, those associations. I mean, that's great. I just have a little bit of a concern as far as making sure that it didn't, conflict with your duties here for the ETA.
I understand, and as you heard, I've been with Burlington for 4 years and Escalon for 25 years, and while I was at other employers, I've been able to manage my full-time responsibilities and still be able to maintain those, and still be able to deliver a good quality product, as evident like what I've done at the Reading Area Bus Authority in the last 2 years, what I did in Hawaii County 2 years prior to that, for instance, and even when I was at the Common in Columbia, South Carolina, for the 3 years there. So I'll give the same energy I gave to those 3 agencies here to ETA. And hopefully what you're seeing in this packet is evident that even I was still able to put this together while still being able to maintain those other entities.
Wow.
So
Oh, thank you for that.
I have a question, just out of curiosity, for the positions that require travel, occasional travel, are the hours here inclusive of that, the actual travel time, or is that on top?
that's on top.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, I was traveling to a county conference, and I ran into Mr. Ando at a Denver airport.
Denver Airport, yes.
And we had a layover, and we sat down and went over the agenda together. So I can attest to his commitment to this work above the others. And Mr. Ando, just for grant tracking purposes, is there a way that you track your hours both with ETA and with other entities?
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet to make
Okay.
sure that I'm not like double dipping, for instance, and
Okay.
ensuring like I'm giving 40 hours here and then the respective amounts to those entities. And then those are recorded on time cards at those respective entities. So with that changing from being an employee to a consultant, I'll basically be providing invoices where I'll be documenting those on the invoices.
Okay. Any other questions?
That's one, sorry.
Yes.
So if requested, would you be amenable to submitting some of those?
Pardon me?
Would you be amenable to submitting some of those spreadsheets if requested?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion from Commissioner Butler and a second from Andrea Carrillo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will now move on to Agenda Item 5H. This is to approve and authorize the director to negotiate with the City of El Paso Mass Transit Department for ancillary services and to present any resulting agreements to the El Paso Transportation Authority Board of Directors for future review and consideration, subject to legal review and approval. Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is an exciting staff item because, one, I'm a big believer in regionalism and making the passenger experience easy and seamless, especially where with us creating ETA and having all the municipalities participate, and we have the city of El Paso wanting to work with us, I feel that there's some opportunities for synergies with with the city of El Paso, and also hopefully achieving cost reductions as a result of partnering with a fellow governmental entity. This action is basically, we're in negotiations with Transdev, which has been awarded by El Paso County to operate and maintain the transit system. And based on my experiences working in other transit agencies where we've partnered with other public end agencies for services, I believe that there is a potential that we will be able to get some lower costs by working with Sun Metro, and that we can reduce from the Transdev contract and then apply any savings back to the member agencies and also into service being provided on the street. So we are proposing that the following items that we would negotiate with Sun Metro and come before this board for consideration and approval, and ultimately take to the El Paso County Commissioners Court. And that includes one, a leasing maintenance facility from Sun Metro, presently at 700 San Francisco Avenue. That would include the utilities and facility maintenance via a lease agreement for a 1-year term plus 1-year options until the new ETA facility is ready, estimated to be 2029. Using the existing interlocal agreement to pay for CNG fuel directly, and that we would provide gasoline fuel. I believe Sun Metro doesn't provide gasoline fuel, am I correct? Correct. So we would use the county's contract for gasoline fuel by providing Transdev fuel cards versus Transdev providing the fuel expense. That means that we would pay fuel at government rates. We wouldn't have to pay taxes or pay any potential premium of prices as fuel prices fluctuate. So we could better control our fuel costs. As an option starting in year 2 or later of the Transdev contract, for ETA to subcontract out vehicle maintenance to Submetro for 28 cutaways, 3 support vehicles, and 8 vans, which would then eliminate the need for us to lease a maintenance shop and provide maintenance equipment, and then we would just pay Sun Metro an hourly labor rate plus parts for the maintenance. Have an allowance to have transfers between the two systems, and an idea on how we could do this is where Sun Metro would pay ETA for Sun Metro passengers to ride ETA routes, and then ETA would pay Sun Metro for ETA passengers riding Sun Metro routes at connecting points. And that would be an amendment through an existing interlocal agreement for bus passes that already exists between the county and Sun Metro. We have already started engaging these conversations with Transdev as part of our contract negotiations in conjunction with El Paso County Purchasing. And I preface that should Sun Metro costs be lower than Transdev's costs, then we would recommend to this board to authorize utilizing Sun Metro for these services. However, should Sun Metro's costs be higher than Transdev's costs, then we would continue to have Transdev provide these services. We've also engaged TxDOT to ensure concurrence on these changes and that these changes will not have any financial impact on the county's grants, and that we can apply the maximum federal share for each of these proposed services with Sun Metro. If we are to do passenger transfers with Sun Metro, we would need to amend our fare policy to align with Sun Metro's fare policy, which will be brought back before this board and Commissioners Court at a future meeting for consideration. And in addition to using 5307 funds, we'll also have to create a half fare for seniors, persons with disabilities, and Medicare card holders, which we presently don't have with our fare policy to this day. Happy to answer any questions about this requested action, if there are any.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Michelle Martinez, Assistant County Attorney. In line with what Mr. Ando was speaking to with working with the purchasing department, we do recommend that he work closely with the county and purchasing department just to make sure that, because of the purchasing laws, to make sure that any negotiations and discussions and final product are in line with the RFP that is currently in place for TransDev.
And I believe those discussions have been ongoing with purchasing as well as with TxDOT.
That is correct.
Any questions or comments from the board? There's a lot of work and a lot of collaboration with Sun Metro already in a short amount of time, so we appreciate your work on this, Mr. Ando.
Thank you. Can I ask if Mr. Rinkus, if there's any, is this all in line with what we've discussed, and is there any comments you wanted to add?
Yes, with respect to the agreements he listed, the facility lease has currently been directly with TransDev. So as he mentioned, this would allow ETA to become enter in directly with Sun Metro for that maintenance facility. The fuel agreement is with the county. So I think you're proposing to add in ETA as a party to that. Oh, I'm sorry. I muted myself. So that's amending an existing agreement. The transfers would be amending an existing agreement. So as he said, the one that would go a little bit longer term is the vehicle maintenance, and that would involve more back and forth between Sun Metro and ETA. But we're here to work with y'all.
Appreciate that. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion from Andrea Carrillo and a second from Art Rubio. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This will now take us to Agenda Item 5I. This is to approve and authorize the proposed El Paso Transportation Authority relocation policy.
I think this is an item that has come as a result of some of the contract negotiations with Mr. Ando, and as much as we tried to anticipate every possible outcome, there is one small area that we wanted to address that is more appropriate for the ETA board to address, right, Mr. Ando?
That's correct.
That relates to the relocation policy. So under the contract that we approved, we allowed the county human resources policy is to reimburse relocation expenses within 90 days of the first day of employment, because Mr. Ando's partner in Austin will be still living there for 6 months to a year. He's asked us to be flexible on that policy, and I think it's more appropriate for us to be able to reimburse those expenses as a board, and that would require us adopting this policy.
That is correct. And as well as with the use of grant funds through the county to pay for any relocation costs, TxDOT would like to see a policy that applies, that takes into consideration any IRS rules and 2 CFR 200, which is also known as the super circular, to ensure that all moving expenses are eligible prior to drawing down these funds through those grants.
Any questions, comments?
The question, there's no conflict with county policy or anything like that?
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, Eric Rosales-Negaglione, Assistant County Attorney. So it would, you'd work, if you're wanting it to continue to be county funded, right? It's different if the board wants to use the ETA funds for something. But the three-way contract that you have right now with the county, you would have to, in our opinion, you would have to amend the contract. So the county would review as to, would county HR allow it? Would the granting agency also allow it? And if the answer to that is yes, the county could, with the board, amend the contract that you have right now in Exhibit A. The limitation is $10,000 within 60 days. So it would need to be amended and reviewed by the county.
That's all.
Okay.
It
So
would
this
need
is
to, is that only, it would need to be amended if county funds were being used? Is that what you said?
Yes, I will also not, a couple things. It would need to be amended if county funds are being used, but because Mr. Ando continues to be a county employee, county HR would also have to sign off on it. So even if you were to say, we're not going to use any county funds, we'll just use ETA funds, because he's still a county employee subject to county HR, I would just recommend a conversation with how you would iron that out.
I guess I would make a motion subject to the, whatever requirements the county has to, or amendments that need to be done to the contract.
Michelle Martinez, Assistant County Attorney. I would like to propose a motion for the board's consideration to approve and authorize the ETA's relocation policies subject to legal review and approval.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the first?
Mr. Rubio.
Okay, so we have Art Rubio as the first and Eddie Condi is the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, this will now take us to Agenda Item 5J. This is to approve and authorize the chair to approve relocation expenses up to $10,000 in excess of 90 days for the El Paso Transportation Authority Director and authorize revisions to Mr. John Ando's employment agreement upon El Paso County Commissioners Court.
You skipped a slide.
Thank you.
So this is just the next step after adopting the relocation policy? For our discussion, Erica?
Yes.
Right, I guess it was revised, sorry. Yes, that includes the language that Michelle was mentioning. It's subject to legal review and approval, but we would recommend the Commissioners Court approval as well, as long as county funds will be used.
So do we need action on this, or was it encompassed in the previous?
I think it's what Michelle's, it'll have to be brought back to the board. And so I think Michelle's motion that you all approved, just subject to legal review and approval, we'll bring it back. We would bring back an amendment or some kind of update for the board. Yes, ma'am. I think that's fine.
Okay, so no action on this
No.
item?
No action.
Thank you.
Okay, so on item 5J, there will be no action. Okay, we can move on now to item 5K. This is to designate an official meeting location for El Paso Transportation Authority and authorize the director to work with the Secretary of State to amend the Articles of Incorporation. Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. This action is just more of a technicality. Presently, our registered office is 800 East Overland, room 200. And that was when ETA was formed and was being housed in the, I believe, the Department of Planning and Development. Since we now have our own offices, we want to, but we don't meet at our offices. I'm requesting that this board authorize designating the county courthouse and the Rio Grande Council of Governments as the in-person meeting locations based on availability where EPATS will hold meetings, that we would allow for remote participation in meetings, and then we'll just amend our Articles of Incorporation to update our official offices and to make any technical adjustments as shown in the attachment and it's part of the staff report. Happy to answer any questions that, if there are any.
Just a little bit of housekeeping. Any questions? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Butler. And the second one, I'm sorry, I cannot see from back here, is Eddie, thank you. Mr. Condi, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion will carry. All right, so we'll move on to Agenda Item 5L. This is to authorize discussions with the City of El Paso Mass Transit Department regarding participation in the El Paso Transportation Authority as a full voting member and return back to the Board of Directors with a recommendation on their full participation. Mr. Ando?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm requesting approval from this board to authorize discussions with Sun Metro about authorizing their full participation in ETA. Presently, there's some benefits to having Sun Metro potentially be a full member, and that would include, presently, we have a license agreement with Sun Metro for the use of their transit centers. We do provide some level of service within the city of El Paso to connect to the Sun Metro transit centers. And Sun Metro is the designated recipient of 5307, 5337, and 5339 funds in the El Paso urbanized area. And as part of our negotiations with them for some of those funds, their participation on this board could be beneficial towards just showing regional coordination and regional collaboration. And we would, as part of the negotiations, we would return back to this board with a proposed interlocal agreement and a proposed contribution amount, as well as an amendment to the bylaws for them, which actually the board just already approved. And then as a result, adding an additional board seat for El Paso County due to El Paso's level of financial contribution and in-kind services being provided to ETA. Happy to answer any questions about this requested action if there are any.
Questions or comments?
Forward to those discussions.
Don't look so happy, Carl. You look way too excited about this. Just kidding. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Beller and a second from Eddie Condi.
It was Andrea.
Andrea, okay. Andrea Carrillo, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion will carry. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 5M. This is to receive a report from the director regarding El Paso Transportation Authority activities.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'll keep this brief, but it's been a fun 5 weeks. I've spent time meeting many individuals that are that work closely with ETA, just as a meet and greet. Mr. Benyales has been very helpful in providing me that transitional support. I've been working with our staff in just building relationships with them, understanding the projects that they're doing, and providing direction and clarity for the work that they're doing. The staff has been working very hard in basically supporting ETA. I'm very grateful for the staff that we have. We've been making revisions and updates to our website. I've been working closely with the Rio Grande Council of Governments on understanding the organization, putting together this board packet, and getting the necessary support needed for us to function as an LGC. So it's been busy, but I'm definitely enjoying what have been doing and look forward to many more board meetings and the future of the organization.
Thank you, Mr. Ando.
I will add that future board reports, we will include performance statistics of the transit system so you can understand ridership by route and other important metrics to help the board understand how the transit system's performing. And then we'll have we have 2 more items here. One, we'll have our operations contractor give a report on the performance of the transit operations. And then we'll also have a long-range calendar to show items that we intend to bring before the board for consideration so the board's aware of what's upcoming. And then I would also like to do an Employee of the Month program with TransDev to where the board chair and the board would basically give us a certificate to one of our employees for going over and beyond. And hopefully we'll have that program ready for this board to consider next month.
You've definitely been busy. Thank you, Mr. Ando. Just one question, and I know that we briefly discussed this before, but I think it would be a great time for us to do some strategic planning as a board under your leadership, Mr. Ando. So if we could add that to your plate for future meetings, that would be great.
Yes, actually, that is one of the items, is to start strategic planning process and possibly bring in a facilitator to help us vision and determine where do we want to take ETA going into the future.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ando.
Okay, so there'll be no action on this item. We'll move on to agenda item 5N. This is to receive a report on TransDev's operations for the month of June.
Yes, and Madam Chair, members of the board, Sylvia, the general manager of Transit, had to leave early, so I was going to have her do this presentation. However, her report is in pages 316 and 317 of your packet, and at the next board meeting, we'll have a presentation from her on basically TransDev's operations, and we'll do that going forward into the future. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you.
Okay, no action on this agenda item. We'll move on to agenda item 5O. This is to receive a report on activities related to the El Paso Transportation Authority from the chair and board members.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, pages 319 and 320 of your packet is basically a list of items that I anticipate bringing before the boards, both the Commissioners Court and the Transportation Authority Board for review and consideration. And this list is a living document and is subject to change as items come before us. So just gives you a list of what's projected ahead. And I'm happy to answer any questions about these two lists if there are any.
This is very helpful. Quite a to-do list. Any
Okay.
questions or comments from the board?
No action on this item. We'll go now on to item 5P. This is to review long-range calendar of proposed future agenda items for El Paso Transportation Authority and El Paso Commissioners Court.
I think we just did
We
that
just did
one.
that
I'm
one.
sorry. Yeah, we just did 5P.
5O on the agenda.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Eric Rosales Negaglione, Assistant County Attorney. So we don't need a motion for this, but just for the record, we're also taking the executive session item because it is a personnel matter pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, which just covers personnel matters. I just wanted to mention that for the record and for the public.
Annette, I can't, your microphone's off.
Yes, I apologize. Okay, we'll wait. Okay. So we'll move into executive session now? Okay.
Okay, we're back on.
I'm sharing my screen, just a moment. Okay, so we're back in open session. And we're okay. Okay, so we'll now go on to our regular agenda continued, and this is 7A, approve and authorize the El Paso Transportation Authority Director's performance evaluation. Will there be
Yes.
any action?
Yes, I would like to propose a motion to accept the performance evaluation forms that were reviewed in executive session.
I second.
All right, I have a second from Mr. Condi. I have a motion from Commissioner Butler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So this will take us to our last item, adjournment, which I didn't think would happen. So, wow, kudos to the board. Kudos to the board. And Mr. Ando for your efficiency. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion, but I also want to comment that we are hosting a reception, a welcome reception for Mr. Ando. I hope everybody here will join us on the lower level, what do you call it? The courtyard at 4 o'clock in about 20 minutes.
All
Second?
right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I made a motion.
I second.
Second from Mr. Condi. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you so much. The
Thank you,
time is now
everyone.
3:39. Thank you.
Yay.